What's going on, y'all? Um, Let me know if you have any problems with the sound, but we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. For years, we Americans have been told that lowering the standards was compassion, the soft bigotry of low expectations. We've heard that phrase many times. We were told that these bad ideas are progress, and that questioning the narrative was it made you the problem. And now we're actually seeing the fruit of that. We're watching the results play out everywhere, from schools to politics to culture, entertainment on the world stage. Today, we are going to get into all of that and connect the dots and ask the question, how we got here. So we are going to get into all of that right after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Welcome to the Mission Ready Men briefing right here on the SHR Media Network, where faith in God sets the standard and masculinity is not toxic. Today is Tuesday, June 16th in the year of our Lord 2026, and we have a packed show for you today. But before we get into it, as always, do all the algorithm things, hit like, subscribe, share. Help us get the word out. Help us to get out from under this algorithms chokehold that they have us in. We're still growing, so we're very thankful for that. But it's slowed down a little bit. So every click, every like, every share, every comment in the comment section helps us out. So please do all of that for us. Every one of those things matters a great deal. And also, this show is also on the Mission Ready Men briefing channel, the individual channel, same briefing, same content, all of that. SHR is the home base, but if you are looking for another avenue, head over to the individual channel, the Mission Ready Men briefing on YouTube, and everywhere, all the socials. And head over there and like and subscribe and do all of that. We would really appreciate it. So the question is how we got here. And if you've been with me for any length of time, you kind of know where this is going to go and how we got here. But we're going to walk through it and take a look at exactly the road that we went down to get to this point. And so we know, we've talked about it almost ad nauseum at this point. The Austin Metcalf, Karmelo Anthony case. And so we're not going to relitigate that. We're not going to get into all of the details of that. But it's illustrative of a problem that that we have been saddled with over the years, and we have this culture, and we're going to get into how we got here as well. But where if there's a minor dispute, if there's the slightest infraction, then that warrants the most violent of reactions. And in the Karmelo Anthony, Austin Metcalf case, that led to a tragic loss of life. And that happens so often. And it's not random. It's the fruit of a culture that has traded discipline for respect, unearned respect, mind you, and entitlement. And this Karmelo Anthony case is the latest example and the most obvious example, because you see this all the time: assaults, killings, all kinds of violence in these urban areas. And it's a result of a collapse of discipline at home, amplified by failing schools and policies that were championed by this BLM style grievance ideology that excuses mediocrity, excuses excuses unnecessary escalation, and excuses, and even to a certain extent elevates victimhood. And so, as I said, we know about the Austin Metcalf, Karmelo Anthony case, but we're going to broaden it out. And the broader reality is, in cities like Chicago, Baltimore, Philly, LA, the most minor of perceived slights, whether somebody looked at you wrong or looked at you too long or bumped into you by mistake or stepped on your, whatever the case may be, that is seen as disrespect. And that escalates to stabbings, shootings, vicious beatings. And it's this code of the street type mentality. It's this gangster rap, hip hop mentality that has permeated the urban community for decades now. And this hypersensitivity, I guess you would call it, to this perceived disrespect, when 9 times out of 10 people don't even care. People don't care about you enough to disrespect you. But because you are so hypersensitive to it, because you think you deserve this ultimate respect, if somebody doesn't conform to that, then you see that as a slight, and you see that as a justification for violence. And we can blame, to a large extent, hip hop culture, gangster rap, trap, drill rap, all of that glorifies drug dealing, gang warfare, and it's permeated the culture. It's poisoned the culture. And you see these cases all the time, where the most trivial of microaggressions, to use a popular term these days, disputes or perceived disputes over personal space, or like I said, stares, or just bumping into somebody by mistake in a crowded situation, whether it's a a mall or a party, whatever the case may be, these types of things have led to homicide. And the elevated homicide rate in these urban areas that we're talking about involve, most of the time, young Black males who think that they've been disrespected and feel the need to retaliate. And they feel the need to get that respect back is to stab somebody, shoot somebody, beat somebody down. And I'm not saying that every kid in this situation, in these situations, reacts this way, but the kids who don't have fathers in the home, the kids whose parents are not taking them to church, discipling them, things like that, those kids who fall into the gang mentality are 9 times out of 10 going to react that way. And that's a big reason why we find ourselves in this situation. And BLM has perpetrated, they've popularized this victimhood mentality where, and it's also kind of an inferiority complex, because it gives you this sense that because some outside influence, white, Black, Hispanic, whatever the case may be, it gives you this idea that these outside influences have an over-representation of control over your life, and you can't get away from it, which is absolutely not the case in just about every situation. I saw something just before we came on, and before I get too far down the road, I want to show you this because it's disturbing. It's not grotesque. Well, it is kind of grotesque, but it's not gory or anything like that. But it's just, I just want you to see this so you can understand exactly what we're dealing with here. And it's pretty disgusting. And the only way out of it I can see is prayer, divine intervention, because this is just watch.
Austin Bob, knife had blood on the tip when he dropped. How the fuck you gonna stop me? Shit, niggas going out back, Marlo out the box. That sound when he died. The fuck with his floor, but I got side. Nigga go text my phone, talk about he don't like my shit. He got stabbed behind knife. Austin Bob, knife had blood on the tip when he dropped. How the fuck you gonna stop me? Shit, niggas going out back, Marlo.
And that goes on for a minute and a half, and I think that's enough. I was blunt. I don't get surprised, and I don't get that was just one of those things that I really could not believe what I was seeing and hearing. How the fact that we're here, we're going to get into how we got here. And we talked about it a little bit already, but what makes somebody think that that is acceptable in any way? There was a time when we actually had shame. When people would maybe think about doing something, but realize that it would bring shame to them or their family or whatever, and they would think twice about it. And they wouldn't do what common sense would prevail. Common sense is pretty much extinct at this point. Because that was just, wow. And it's this type of stuff that normalizes these escalations over minor infractions. And when you're glorifying stuff like that, how can you claim the moral high ground? How can you claim, like Karmelo Anthony tried self-defense? How can you? I'm just blown away. And it's this type of stuff that makes people tired. It's this type of stuff right here that has led to what's known now as Black fatigue. People are tired of it. And the escalation that I'm talking about, we saw it. I talked about it last week with the Stacey Patton piece, where she wrote this Substack, which she has since monetized it. So you have to now subscribe to her content in order to see it. It was free, but somebody screenshotted it, and she wrote in one passage about how he failed to teach Austin that Black children have boundaries and yada, yada, yada. I went through it all before. And not just her, but numerous podcasts, Black grifters like Tariq Nasheed and Larry Reed and the amazing Lucas and others, Roland Martin, talking about how Karmelo Anthony was entitled to be where he was, and this goes beyond the Metcalf Anthony situation, because this is the type of mindset that has permeated the community, to where if I'm there, then you better respect me, and if you don't, then we're going to have a problem. If you do something that I don't like, then you're in the wrong and you're going to pay the price. That's the mentality. And BLM didn't invent this disrespect culture that we're dealing with, but they sure did weaponize it effectively. And they're doing everything they can to protect it. And that's the sad reality. Now, I told you before that, and I really can't stand talking about race and race relations and all that, and I avoided it for a long time, but it's to the point now where I really don't have a choice. And I told you how when I was growing up, and into my young adulthood, well into my young adulthood, we were past racism. That's not to say that there were no racists. Obviously there were. But it was to the point where it was like Chris Rock has this line, they still make you? Like it just wasn't a thing. And if you did come across one, then it was like, wow, what happened to you? So it's not something that I really felt the need to talk about and frame my whole being around. It just wasn't. Unlike some of these grifters that I've mentioned before. But then come 2008, we enter Barack Hussein Obama. And in 2014, he wrote a letter to the Department of Education talking about disparate impacts. And he pressured schools, his Department of Education pressured schools to reduce suspensions for Black students and go this restorative justice, softer handling of defiance and disruption in the classroom, and started having them track racial stats and whatnot differently, which by definition created a two-tiered system of justice in schools, system of discipline. And I did talk about this a little bit in one of my earliest shows when I was still pre-recording them. But it's led to this gap where disruptive behavior is tolerated, teachers lose control, and the chaos that ensues is normalized. And the consequences are dependent on your skin color. If you engage in this behavior and you're Black, well, then you get a different level of discipline than if you're white or any other ethnic group. And when the schools fail to address this street mentality in the classroom, then those kids are free to, or feel free to, engage in that behavior outside because they don't think there's going to be any consequences. And when you don't think there's going to be any consequences, why bother to change your behavior? And so when that type of stuff goes unchecked in elementary, middle school, high school, when these kids get out into the real world, those behaviors that weren't corrected early on, whether at home or school, and which we'll get into, it leads to deadly consequences. Proverbs 22:6 says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. The data is there that shows that disorder and chaos spikes when these policies that prioritize equity over order are put in place. And since 2014, those kids that dealt with that dealt with that restorative justice nonsense in school, those are the kids that are now committing all these crimes and are filling up our jails and prisons. So that's one aspect of the failure. The other, obviously, is the ridiculously high fatherlessness rate and single parent rate in these urban communities. And for as much as they tried to portray Karmelo Anthony as this model kid, if you watch the interview of his parents on The Breakfast Club, you realize that they set this kid up for failure from the word go. And Jeff Metcalf, he in that interview he said that CPS needs to check on their other kids because based on the way Karmelo Anthony turned out and the things that have come out since the trial that he has been engaged in, maybe they do need to check on those kids. And so when you have either weak fathers or undisciplined fathers or no fathers in the home that don't know how to discipline their children effectively, and then you send them off to a school that does the exact same thing, it just compounds the problem. It compounds the problem. And so it's not just the fatherlessness and the lack of discipline in schools, because those are symptoms of the much larger issue, which is that we have rejected the biblical order. We have rejected the idea of training children and disciplining children so that they act right when they grow up. Just to put it bluntly. I believe it's Proverbs 29:15. A child left to himself brings shame. And that plays out. We're seeing that play out every day in these communities. And so these kids who carry on about being disrespected and demanding respect from everyone, true respect comes from being under self-control under God, and not this macho street retaliation that just leads to chaos and disorder and death. And it's sad. And the only way this changes in any meaningful way. Policies and laws can change, that might do a little something, but the only way this changes in any meaningful way is if we come back to God, is if we return to our Christian roots. Until that happens, we're going to be dealing with this in one form or another until Christ comes back. So, to answer the question, rejecting God is how we got here. And the only way we're going to get out of it is if we turn back to him. All right. There is another big story that we're going to have to talk about. And we're going to get to it. But first, I want to get a word in from our sponsor. And our sponsor for today's show is Burning It Up Hat Company. Burning It Up, they built me a custom Navy hat. I'm not wearing it today, but it fits me like it was made for me, because it was. Clean lines, strong crown, sharp look. I love that hat. And it's not something that you grab off a shelf. It's built by a woman who knows her craft and is excellent at it. So if you want to stand out without saying a word, get your hat made at Burning It Up Hat Company. Burning It Up, built right, worn proud. So visit Burning It Up Hat Company at burningitup.com today. Okay. So President Trump announced yesterday, that a deal has been struck with, or actually, I think it was Sunday when it was announced, announced that a deal has been struck with Iran, and the memorandum of understanding has been signed electronically. And there will be a formal signing in Switzerland on Friday. This deal, it's a framework with Iran that is going to open up the Straits of Hormuz, 60-day ceasefire. The markets responded favorably. I'm not so convinced because, and I posted this on social media, as long as the current regime is in power, there really isn't much of a cause for celebration. This isn't, as long as the current regime is in place, and I know President Trump has said the first set of leaders are gone, the second set are gone, and these are the more reasonable people that they're dealing with, and that's all well and good. But this is just a pause button as far as I'm concerned. Because as long as that regime is in place, it's the same regime that has been chanting death to America and death to Israel for 47 years. And funding the terrorists that are trying to carry out that death to America and death to Israel. Now, from what we know of the details haven't been released, but from what we know of the deal, from people who have been briefed on it and people who have reported on it, it's structurally, it sounds like it could be a decent deal. There's no upfront cash like what Obama gave them in the JCPOA. The Strait of Hormuz opens immediately. They're required to get rid of their uranium. Lavish H2, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that super chat. That is awesome. Thank you very much. Lavish H2 says, tomorrow is not guaranteed. Ask Jesus to enter your heart and help you turn from sin, for he alone can save your soul and give you true love and peace. Amen. Thank you very much for that. We really appreciate that. Less than the JCPOA? Okay. That's just simply not true. But let's take a listen to what JD Vance had to say about it, because he was on all the morning shows, and he's been making the rounds to try and sell this. So let's get into this.
Republican Senator Lindsey Graham said yesterday, you are the architect of this deal. So let's walk through some of this. The Iranians are saying that they're going to have access to a $300 billion reconstruction fund. True or false?
Well, Ed, that's the sort of thing they could have access to, funded by the Gulf Coast Coalition, so long as they honor their end of the obligation. I think that one of the things you're going to see, Ed, and people have to be skeptical of this, is that the hardliners in the Iranian system will overemphasize the benefits that Iran gets while underemphasizing all the things that they have to concede and all the things they have to provide in order to get these benefits. So we absolutely are open to the Gulf Coast countries investing in the reconstruction of Iran, but only if Iran ends their nuclear program, ends their enriched stockpile of material, and is really open to an inspections and enforcement regime that gives the American people confidence they're never going to have a nuclear weapon. So I think the dance you're going to see, Ed, which is going to be interesting, is the Iranian media, especially the hardline media, they're going to talk a lot about what they get without talking about what they give. It's important for all of us to correct that record.
It sounds good. It sounds great. I mean, we know that according to reports, none of us have seen the deal yet. We don't know. According to reports, they are required to destroy all their uranium. Now, President Trump did say that there was no urgency in getting rid of it, which is concerning to say the least. But upon signing of the agreement, the Strait of Hormuz is going to open completely. They're not going to be charging any tolls. The sanctions relief is supposed to come after they do get rid of the uranium. And I suppose that might be what President Trump is referring to when he says there's no urgency, because as long as they don't hold up their end of the bargain, then there's no sanctions relief. We'll see. We'll see. I'm skeptical. They also have to keep their proxies, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and so on, have to keep them on a leash. If they attack Israel, then there's no deal. Obama also had something to say about this. And his deal was so ridiculous because it not only there was no enforcement of it, there was no the path was there for them to get their nuclear weapon because there was no enforcement. Plus, he gave them hundreds of billions of dollars up front. So those two things alone make President Trump's deal, if it goes through the way it's supposed to, infinitely better than this junk that Obama gave us. But let's take a listen to what Obama had to say about it.
You spent a lot of time wrestling with the threat of a nuclear Iran. How do you think things are being handled right now there?
It is doubtful that any agreement that arises is going to be significantly different or a significant improvement from the deal that we had in the first place.
Yes, they were subject to inspections. The problem is they never allowed any of those inspections to take place, which is why they ended up with 70% enriched uranium and on the verge of a nuclear weapon.
And had worked for a long stretch of time before the United States pulled out of it. So I'm hopeful that bombing stops and ordinary people are.
That is hilarious coming from this guy. This guy dropped so many bombs on so many people in his 8 years. He was the bomber in chief. This guy killed millions of people. Some of them American citizens without due process. But because he's the chosen one and he's the greatest, well, then I guess that's different.
Are no longer suffering as a consequence of the war. And then in retrospect, it's a reminder that on a lot of difficult foreign policy problems, the notion that we can just bully our way or bomb our way to solutions may sometimes seem appealing, but the fact of the matter is that taking the time to explore diplomacy and exhaust the possibilities of coming up with deals that don't solve 100% of the problem, but solve 80, 90% of the problem, while avoiding the necessity of going to war. You'd think we would have learned that lesson by now, but it's.
That is so rich coming from this guy. And the 300 billion is not from us. It's from the Gulf Coast coalition that is going to invest. There might be some from us, maybe, but it's going to be coming from the Emirates and the Saudis and the Qataris and all the rest of it who are going to invest in helping them rebuild their infrastructure. So, at least according to what I've read so far. Now, if you've got something else that says something different, well, then by all means, let us know. But as far as I know, nobody has actually seen the deal yet. So I'm just going by what I've actually read and not what some Twitter troll has spoon-fed me. So there's that. Now, I'm skeptical for this reason. As long as, and I said this up front, as long as the current regime is in place, they can't be trusted. They have violated agreement after agreement. They violated the JCPOA that all the leftists seem to be in love with. They violate their agreements all the time because their religion, to the extent that it even can be called a religion, allows them to lie in order to advance their agenda. Which is why I am super skeptical of this, because between and their I don't want to say mandate, but they're allowed to lie goes back to their so-called prophet, pedophile prophet. Takia and Hudna are some of the principles that allow them to lie in these situations. And then there's Israel. And I know I'm going to get a whole bunch of stuff about how much are they paying you? Did you get your $7,000 check yet? Well, the answer is no, I haven't. I haven't. But Israel is not on board. Israel thinks it's a bad deal. Netanyahu said that their struggle hasn't ended. And there is, I read something, I didn't get a chance to dive too deep into it, but I read something where Israel refusing to pull out of Lebanon is a bit of a sticking point. So we'll see how that goes. But Israel is not pleased, and I don't blame them, because I don't know that we've actually accomplished what they said we were supposed to accomplish with this. Now, when the deal comes out, when the text of the deal comes out and we get to read it, maybe that'll change. I don't see Israel as being difficult. I think they're being realistic, because Iran, in the current regime in Iran, has financed all of the terror attacks between Hezbollah and the Houthis and all the rest of them that have attacked them over the years. So we'll see. I hope it holds. I hope it's as good a deal as they're selling to us. But I just don't trust. I don't trust Iran. I don't trust that regime. Nobody in their right mind should. And this is another reason why Christians need to be active in the political process. We need to be electing people who actually understand what's at stake and aren't just aren't just in it for their egos and aren't just trying to prove how good a negotiator they are. People always say, well, you're just you're in Trump's cult and he can do no wrong and blah, blah, blah. Well, here I am criticizing him probably as much as I've ever criticized President Trump on this show. I think this could potentially be a disastrous deal. And again, we haven't seen the text of the deal, so we don't know. It could be a great deal, but just based on what I know, just based on this Iranian regime, this could be a disaster. And the details of the deal are supposed to be released on Friday after it's signed. So we're going to get to read everything that everyone else is going to get to read. And then we'll be able to make our decision. Now, if the regime fundamentally changes, if the people who are in charge right now are not the Islamic extremists that we've been dealing with for the past 47 years, well, then that changes things. That changes the calculus a bit. But I haven't seen any evidence to suggest that. So there's that. All right, let's pivot to something a little more positive. And, well, a little more positive in one aspect and a little more ridiculous on another. The left has been absolutely freaking out about the fight that took place on the White House lawn. President Trump turned the White House South Lawn. He brought in an octagon. There were fighters, an epic flyover, which we're going to take a look at, I think. An epic flyover. The Marine Corps band, I watched the entire thing. Marine Corps band was amazing. I knew they were good. I didn't realize that they were that good. It was an epic night. It was an absolutely epic night. And of course, like I said, the left lost their minds. Let's go ahead and take a look at what at part of that night. I'm not going to talk about the fights and all like that. I mean, if you're interested in the UFC, you probably already saw it. If not, I don't know what to tell you. But anyway, let's just get a taste of what took place that night. I mean, that flyover was amazing. Everything about it, everything about the production was amazing. And from what I understand, this was put on and produced by Dana White and the UFC. It was not taxpayer funded. So again, if there's evidence to suggest otherwise, let me know. But that is my understanding as of right now. And so we had the Marine Corps band, we had Zach Brown giving the national anthem, who I got to give him props because he's not exactly a conservative by any stretch. He said some pretty lefty things over the years. But I give them props for showing up and being patriotic, and getting involved with the celebration of America. But of course, because of this epic production, the left decided that they had to do some counter programming. And I think they thought that when Turning Point USA did their counter programming of the Super Bowl, I think they thought that they could just say they were going to do counter programming and it was going to be good. Yeah, didn't quite work out that way. Because when you had, like I said, the Marine Corps band, Zach Brown, all the great acts that performed spectacularly, you you had this as their response.
No one is getting left behind this time. No one is getting left behind. Not this time. No one is getting left behind this time. How do we get there? Together or never get there at all.
I had to listen to it. You did too. I'm sorry. That was that was amazing on a completely different level. I mean, how are they not embarrassed by that? How are they not completely embarrassed by that? And not to be outdone. And I think this actually took place first. I'm not sure. I didn't watch. But then there was this.
Oh, you fascists bound to lose. You're bound to lose. You fascists bound to lose. Hey there, all you fascists. Let me put you straight. When you come for the rest of us, we'll fight you at the gate and you will lose. You fascists bound to lose.
What do you say to that? What? I mean, it's just, it was called Rise Up, Sing Out. When you and I think there were probably, let's be generous and say there were 500 people in the auditorium where this took place. Just be generous about it, because you could see in some of the other clips all the empty seats, but we'll just say there were 500 people. Between the number of people who were actually at ringside on the South Lawn and then the ellipse where there were, I think, 80,000 people or something like that, their counter programming didn't work. And I'm not sure what the numbers were for the stream of the fight, but when I looked at the different channels that stream this, 35,000. I think the most I saw was 35,000. And so if you aggregate all of them, nobody paid attention to this. Nobody paid attention to this. One side brought world-class athletes, national pride, epic production, and the other brought an aging Bette Midler who has lost her voice. And I admit, she used to be able to sing, and I used to be a fan back in the day. But then she lost her mind and her voice, apparently. And before we move on from this, because I'm not going to spend a whole lot more time on it, I do want to show you this one other clip. And this was, and I'm not going to show you Robert De Niro's blather. That was ridiculous. And I may not even show you the whole thing of this, but it's worth listening to a little bit. But go ahead and check this out.
Scott Pelley fired from CBS by the clack of far-right ideologues who bought it and handed it over to a zealot named Bari Weiss, who may soon...
The fact that she thinks Bari Weiss is a zealot of any kind just shows how ignorant she is. Bari Weiss is, by all accounts, everything I know, center left. She's not a conservative, but she actually respects her profession of journalism. But
she earned those boos. She may soon also control CNN. Jim Acosta out at CNN. Karen Attiah fired from the Washington Post, and me more than a year ago. All of us shown the door for just doing our jobs.
Not true. She was shown the door because her ratings were in the tank. Karen Attiah, I believe, if I have this person correct, actually did something similar to what Scott Pelley did and disrespected her bosses and got fired.
Standing up to the administration, and in my case, also for speaking out against the genocide.
No, your ratings were trash.
And it's not just journalists. Jimmy Kimmel suspended until the people rose up to put him back on the air. The Late Show with Stephen Colbert fired after more than 30 years that show was on the air because
Stephen Colbert was fired because he was losing tens of millions of dollars a year. And his ratings were also trash. These people love to try and rewrite history. It's amazing.
a certain orange asshole whose name is no longer on the Kennedy Center cannot take a joke.
Okay. So if it's that he can't take a joke, why is everybody so upset about the fighter who said Michelle Obama was a man? And he said Michelle, by the way. I don't know if you caught it. But anyway, it's just jokes, right? It's just words. It's free speech, right? Right? Or is it only free speech in one direction? I think we know the answer to that. And then, of course, you had Hillary Clinton with her ridiculous tweet about President Trump disrespecting the White House. And it's like, really? You're going to go there, Hillary? Your husband was getting service by someone not his wife in the Oval Office, and you really want to talk about disrespecting the White House? You probably want to sit that one out. The hypocrisy. And not only that, but all the vandalism that they did on the way out. Popping off all the W keys from all the keyboards, the computer keyboards, stealing furniture. Yeah. They need to sit this one out. And then, and this is the last one I'm going to talk about it, there was the ultimate disrespect of the White House. I believe it was 2023 And well, you know what? Let's just take a look, shall we?
Welcome to the White House.
Thank you.
Happy Pride Month. Happy Pride Year. Happy Pride Life.
Yeah!
Transgender children.
You are beautiful.
You are heard.
You belong.
You are understood.
You are loved.
And you belong. Some of the bravest and most inspiring people I've ever known.
You're welcome.
Good folks.
Can we take a little video? Hi, Mr. President. It is an honor. Trans rights are human rights. Oh, it's a video. Oh, it's a video.
The monument's in the back, right?
Gay news.
Are we topless at the White House?
So yeah, you want to talk about disrespecting the White House, disrespecting the White House grounds, and nobody had anything to say about that. Not Joy Reid, Scott Pelley, none of the leftists in the American Pravda none of them had anything to say. They didn't think it was disrespectful in any way. But holding a UFC fight on the White House grounds, which is not without precedent, by the way. I believe it was it Teddy Roosevelt who held fights on the White House lawn? I believe it was Teddy Roosevelt. So what are we really talking about here? It's not, they don't care about disrespecting the White House. They don't care about any of that. They just care that somebody that they don't like is doing something that they don't like, and they're calling it disrespect. And if you want to say, well, you could say the same thing about conservatives and the Pride celebration. You had these trannies running around half naked on the White House lawn. I'd say there was a bit of a difference. I'd say there was a huge difference. It's only an issue when Trump's involved. That's the bottom line. And oh man, the hypocrisy of these people is off the charts. Just off the charts. Unbelievable, really. And then I take that back. Quite believable, actually, coming from these people. All right. Let's since we're talking about pride tangentially, let's go ahead and get into this, because the San Francisco Giants had their Pride Night, and they gave their the Giants, they gave the team pride themed hats. The SF logo was in rainbow colors, and some of the players had a problem with that. And I don't blame them at all. Now, I know we've talked about how pride has not been a huge deal lately. this year for reasons that I think are obvious between the Dylan Mulvaney thing and just a lot of companies that have realized that it's a financial loser for them. But there were a few Giants players who did not cooperate. Pitchers Landon Root, JT Brubaker, and Ryan Walker all wrote Genesis 9:12 through 16 on their hats. And that's the verse that talks about God's covenant rainbow and his promise not to flood the earth in judgment again. And Sam Henkes, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, he just straight up said, nah, I'm not doing it. I'm good. I'm not wearing a rainbow hat. And I kind of like his stance. Not that I have a problem with the guys wearing the hat and then putting Genesis 9:12 through 16 on it. I think that's perfectly fine. But when you talk about these guys and their conviction of their Bible believing convictions and not wanting to participate in the sin of pride, there's no hatred. Nobody said anything disrespectful about the LGBT alphabet mafia community. But all of a sudden, that's a problem. And here's the thing. These athletes, they're actually paying tribute to the true meaning of the rainbow that the alphabet mafia co-opted. And that's so intolerant, apparently. I mean, the irony of that is so thick. You could cut it with a butter knife. You don't even need the sword of the spirit. It's so thick. The alphabet mafia, they hijack and co-opt God's symbol, God's sign. And then when Christians actually bring it back to its true meaning of what the symbol actually means, all of a sudden that's a problem. Ephesians 5:11 says, have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. And Sam Henkes opting out of wearing the hat is exactly what he did. The other guys with putting the Bible verse on their hats, they did the same thing. I just think not wearing the hat at all was a little bit more effective. Got the message across a little better, in my opinion. Now, of course, the alphabet mafia and MLB, they're all up in arms. Major League Baseball issued a formal warning to the three pitchers who wrote the verses, because apparently that violates the uniform rules. Future violations apparently are going to be fined. They alter the hat with the pride rainbow, but Genesis is somehow off limits. That's amazing to me. Now, Sam Henkes, by opting out of wearing the hat altogether, he didn't get any type of warning or anything like that. So maybe going forward, maybe that's what they should do, is just wear the regular hat. But of course, the Giants, they are in full support of the the Alphabet Mafia community and talked about in their statement respect for personal choices. But the player's personal choice, that somehow caused pain and anger. That was somehow inappropriate. You see the pattern? The tolerance only goes one way. If there were true tolerance, then they would say, okay, if that's not something you want to participate in, we'll be tolerant and let you opt out. But of course, that's not the way they operate. That's not the way any of these people operate. I mean, they can be offended by the Bible, but we can't be offended by the rainbow. That's what they're telling us. It's amazing. It's amazing. And we see this all the time. We see it in schools and in corporations, other sports. Celebrate, affirm, or else. The Texas Rangers, they chose, I talked about this when it happened, they chose a faith and family night instead of the LGBT nonsense. And the left's version of inclusion is basically compelled speech with rainbow frosting, I guess. And if you don't conform or voice your opposition, then of course you're subject to. Rob Schneider said he would pay the fines of the players if they incur those fines. I mean, good on him, but they shouldn't be subject to that in the first place. It's amazing how, and I've talked about this before, but they preach this tolerance nonsense, but then as soon as somebody expresses a different view, an opposing view, well, that's all of a sudden hatred. It can't just be an opposing view. It can't just be a different way of looking at the world. It has to be conform, affirm, celebrate, or you're a hater and a bigot and a fascist and all the rest of it. These players, I think, did a great job. They didn't, they weren't name calling, they weren't screaming, they weren't doing anything. They weren't being disrespectful in any way. They just wanted to make sure that they conformed to their faith and the scripture. And despite what the left would have you think, that's not extremism. That's just Christianity. And Christians, they have to come. Jesus said they hated me before they hated you. They're gonna hate. And that's just something Christians are gonna have to come to expect. The rainbow still belongs to God. Period. End of story. All right. One last thing I want to get to before we get you out of here. Elon Musk is a trillionaire. kind of. Elon Musk, well, you know, before we get into all the nuances of that, of course, the left just hates success. They hate success, and they will do anything they possibly can to bring down people who are successful. And Bakari Sellers is no different. And he went on CNN, and of course, of course, he defamed Elon Musk, and he's just one of many. But let's go ahead and check this out.
Elon Musk is a white supremacist who believes in things like
Oh boy.
I wasn't even finished the
Arthur's here.
sentence.
You may need a lawyer when this is over, Bakari.
No, and then, can I finish the next sentence?
Honestly.
Who believes in things like the Great Replacement Theory?
Honestly,
So,
Bakari.
yes.
What's wrong with what he said? It makes sense
I mean, but
to me.
wait a minute. Does Elon Musk not believe in the Great Replacement Theory? Is it not a racist theory that's been debunked?
First of all, he's not a white supremacist. Second of all, the Great Replacement Theory is not racist. It's been promoted by the left. Chuck Schumer and others are on camera saying this very thing, saying that we have to import all of these immigrants, illegal and otherwise, because who's going to pick our vegetables? Because our birth rate has declined. That's it. It's not white supremacist to understand that. Because if that's the case, he's calling Chuck Schumer and other white Congress people white supremacists.
I just think considering we have about 12 defamation cases in my office right now, before you start throwing things around like someone's a white supremacist. Now the senator from the Democratic senator who's got the SWAT sticker on his chest, I think then I would win that case.
Hold on. Actually, let me just first of all, I want us to stay on topic. I mean, Arthur, I would say there are people, you just brought up Graham Platt, there are people who have come on this show and called him a straight up Nazi. So that has happened.
But there's evidence of that.
Bakari is arguing that he has evidence of racial bias. I don't want to litigate that.
If somebody believes in the Great Replacement, if somebody believes in the Great Replacement Theory, I believe I have every ground to stand on. But what I'm not going to do is allow someone just because they're a trillionaire, and this is the problem we have in this country, because somebody has $1 billion or somebody has $1 trillion, people all of a sudden are afraid to speak their truth.
And as I've said so many times, there is no their truth. There's only truth and lies. That's it. They didn't say that any of this accumulation of wealth was immoral when Bernie Sanders became a millionaire. When Jeff Bezos seemed to be on their side and was a billionaire, they didn't have a problem with it. But because Elon Musk supported President Trump, now all of a sudden, accumulating this much wealth is immoral. And what about all the millionaires that he created as a result of this? Over 4,000 of his employees, current and former, based on the amount of stock that they owned, became instant millionaires once that IPO hit. But what's wrong with that? Is that immoral now too? And we're talking about people who worked at SpaceX for $20, $30 an hour. Now they're millionaires. They and Elizabeth Warren and others have talked about confiscating his wealth, and that nobody should be a trillionaire. Those 4,000, I think it's 4,400 people, somewhere thereabouts, would not be millionaires today if it weren't for Elon Musk. And just so this is paper wealth. He can't go to his bank and pull out $1 trillion. This is a result of stock valuation from SpaceX going public. He can't just like I said, he can't just log into his bank and pull out $1 trillion. It doesn't work that way. Between SEC rules, restrictions, if he were to try and cash that out, there is a very good chance that the company would fail. And think about this. You own a house. You buy it for, we'll just say $100,000. 15 years down the road, it's worth $500,000 or more. You don't have $500,000. You can do certain things to get access to some of that cash, but you don't have even if you sell it, you're not going to get $500,000 between taxes and realtor fees and all the rest of it. And you had people like Ro Khanna talking about a 5% wealth tax will fix everything. Elizabeth Warren talking about we need a wealth tax. They completely ignore all the wealth that was built as a result of his wealth. I used to hate the term or the phrase, "a rising tide lifts all boats." I just thought it was kind of silly and pedantic, but it's actually appropriate, especially in this case. There are 4,400 new millionaires in this country as a result of Elon Musk's efforts and his success. And that is the very definition of the term, "a rising tide lifts all boats." So I guess the left wants to have all the working class people who are now millionaires as a result of this give their wealth back too. Oh boy. Somebody in the chat said that Elon Musk didn't build anything. And I had a list, but I didn't save it because I didn't plan on talking about it. But there is a list of companies and ventures that he built. I want to see if I can pull it up. I may not be able to find it because I can't remember exactly where. I had it. But to suggest that he didn't build anything is just flat out wrong. Anyway, I'll find it and post it because that It's probably not even really worth responding to that nonsense. But anyway, a trillionaire on paper made thousands of millionaires in reality. And the left, they can't handle it. They want to pretend it didn't happen. They want to say Elon Musk stole it, or whatever the case may be. Who knows? It's all just dribble. But congratulations to Elon Musk, and congratulations to the thousands of millionaires he created. And I wish I had bought some SpaceX stock. Oh, anyway. All right. We are just about out of time. Critical 509, you are absolutely right. Nobody ever made a living working for a broke guy. I've never worked for a broke guy, except when I worked for myself. Then I worked for a broke guy. But aside from that, yeah, Musk earned every dime he has. Absolutely. Anyway, you have been watching or listening to the Mission Ready Men briefing right here on the SHR Media Network. I am Big E. You can catch our great lineup here. Sackhead Sean with the Edge of Liberty every Monday and Wednesday at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. Jersey Joe, the Reaver of Common Sense, every Monday and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. BZ in the Berserk Bobcat Saloon every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. He will be on in just over 30 minutes, so be sure to check him out there. And Beer and Bullstein with Lyle Armstrong every Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Please do us a favor, like, subscribe, share all those guys' great shows. Pray for us that we continue to have a big breakthrough this year and continue to reach as many people as we possibly can. So that's going to do it. We are here to equip Christian men and spread the gospel of Jesus Christ and carry the banner of faith, freedom, and hope into the next generation. If anything that we said here tonight matters to you, don't just watch, but share it with another guy and bring him into the fight. And if you want to wear what you stand for, head over to missionreadymen.com, click Shop 7 Armors, and check out all of the great designs we have there about bold faith, true grit, and unapologetic patriotism. And while you're there, click on the SHR Media Shop and check out all of our great designs for the guys' shows. And you can also check out the 250 Reasons to Read Source Documents t-shirt, which I am wearing tonight in honor of our 250th anniversary as the greatest nation on the face of the earth. And that's going to do it. So when seconds count, the police are only minutes away, but the Lord is right there with you. So keep your prayers going up and your head on a swivel. God bless.